I'm always the same. I never change. I'm ready for a 5 round war, and the reason being is, if I go out, say, oh, he's gonna submit him or he's gonna dominate him, but then the fight happens and no submission, no domination, then my train of thought goes away, and I forgot to be engaged in the fight because I thought about, oh, okay, we're not gonna submit him. So if I look at, oh, he should have finished them in the second round and he didn't, then I kept thinking, oh, we didn't finish in the second round. But then my thought pattern changes, so I don't want to do that. So I like to stay engaged the whole time through.
Islam Makhachev's coach, Javier Mendez, has just shared some shocking secrets about Islam ahead of his fight with Jack Della Maddalena. On the other hand, Dan Hardy offered his perspective on Jack Della Maddalena's future, noting his standout abilities, but questioning his chances of ruling the welterweight division amid rising competition. While Hardy complimented Della Maddalena's showing against Belal Muhammad, he voiced doubts about Islam Makhachev's success at 170 pounds. Though Hardy acknowledged Makhachev's dominance at lightweight, he doesn't believe Della Maddalena would lose to him. Hardy pointed out concerns about how Makhachev might handle the physicality of the welterweight class, emphasizing that the increased size and endurance needed over 5 rounds could pose real challenges for him.
I think Della Maddalena's got a bright future. I don't know whether he's going to hold the belt or he's going to lose it to another one of the top contenders and then pick it back up again. I don't think he's going to lose it to Makhachev, though. I think Makhachev holds the lightweight belt against anybody in the world, on any day, including Ilia Topuria. I don't think if he moved up, he would have much success against Makhachev. But Della Maddalena looked very, very sharp against Belal. And I wonder what Makhachev would look like as a welterweight, whether he would look as strong and as lean or whether he would look heavier and, potentially gas himself out because he'd be stepping straight into a 5-round fight, wouldn't he?
Michael Bisping had high praise for Jack Della Maddalena, calling his win over Belal Muhammad a defining moment in his career. He commended Jack not just for his technical abilities in the octagon, but also for his humility and respectful demeanor, describing him as a truly admirable individual. Bisping pointed out Jack's willingness to face difficult opponents and emphasized that his recent performance has paved the way for his next major challenge, a potential showdown with Islam Makhachev, which Bisping believes is fast approaching.
Tonight belongs to Jack Della Maddalena. He's an awesome human being. I've sat down with him several times and had some conversations. Nice guy, quiet guy, a man of few words. But I tell you what, that was an incredible fight tonight. And he'll take on Islam Makhachev. He doesn't care. He wants to be a part of the biggest fights possible. Islam Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena. That's the fight that's going to happen.
However, Javier Mendez said he always stays the same and never changes. He is always ready for a 5-round fight. He does not like to assume that his fighter will finish the fight early or get a submission. If he starts thinking that way and it does not happen, he might lose focus. For him, staying focused during the whole fight is very important.
I'm always the same. I never change. I'm ready for a 5-round war, and the reason being is, if I go out, say, oh, he's gonna submit him or he's gonna dominate him, but then the fight happens and no submission, no domination, then my train of thought goes away, and I forgot to be engaged in the fight because I thought about, oh, okay, we're not gonna submit him. But that little thought, to me, is something that I can't afford.
He compared it to driving on the freeway. If you stop paying attention even for a moment, you can crash. The same thing can happen in a fight. If he starts thinking about what should have happened instead of what is happening, his thoughts change and he loses focus. That is why he always stays engaged and watches the fight closely from start to finish.
For instance, if you think about if you're driving in the freeway and you lose track and you look behind and all of a sudden you look ahead, you just wrecked because you weren't paying attention. So I kind of look at it like that. I need to be engaged at all times and look at the fights and what's going on in front of me. So if I look at, oh, he should have finished them in the second round and he didn't, then I kept thinking, oh, we didn't finish in the second round. But then my thought pattern changes, so I don't want to do that. So I like to stay engaged the whole time through.
Moreover, Daniel Cormier stated that if Islam Makhachev manages to claim the welterweight title, it would greatly elevate his already remarkable career, pushing him further up the ranks of MMA legends. Cormier already sees Makhachev as one of the greatest to ever compete, but capturing a second belt in a heavier division would further solidify that legacy. However, a clash with Belal Muhammad isn't an option, as both fighters have made it clear they won't face off because of their close personalities personal friendship.
Islam, if he is able to do this, would further cement himself as one of the greatest fighters of all time. He really would. He would cement himself as one of the greatest of all time. I think he's already one of the greatest of all time. But by going up to 170, one of the things that he would not do was fight Bilal Muhammad. And they were very clear about him and Bilal Muhammad about not wanting to fight each other.
Cormier also pointed out that Islam Makhachev's influence at welterweight is already noticeable, even without a formal move to the division. He mentioned how current contenders are responding, singling out Joaquin Buckley, who sparked controversy by calling out Islam for backing someone considered a close ally. As Makhachev eyes a second championship, the reactions from welterweights indicate that his potential entry is stirring both tension and anticipation across the division.
But then Joaquin Buckley writes, crazy that you were praying for your so-called brother's downfall. That was Joaquin Buckley. So not only does Islam have an opportunity to become a world champion, he's already got guys up at 170 taking notice.
However, in a previous interview, Javier Mendez shared his thoughts on whether Jack Della Maddalena poses a bigger threat than Ilia Topuria. While he admitted it's hard to say for sure, he made it clear that Islam Makhachev is eager for the challenge Jack brings. According to Mendez, Islam is focused on testing himself, not comparing opponents. He has full confidence in Islam's talent and hard work, believing those qualities allow him to handle any fighter who stands across from him.
How do you feel about this version of JDM as a challenge for Islam? Do you feel like he's a harder challenge than an Ilia Topuria at lightweight?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say if he's a harder challenge. I just know Islam wants this one. So for me, that's the challenge I want, and it's the challenge that I know Islam's going to be, supreme over, because I just know his skill set. I know what he brings to the table, and he brings an incredible work ethic along with skill set in every area.
Mendez added that Islam competes at a level far above anyone Jack has faced so far. If the match happens, he expects a thrilling showdown where Islam will prove why he's among the best. He also mentioned that jumping to welterweight shouldn't be a big problem for Islam, as his strength and skills will still make him a real threat in that weight class.
Islam's a whole different animal than Jack's ever been involved with. So if that fight does materialize, we're going to see a hell of a fight, and you're going to see Islam perform at an absolute incredible level. And also, the weight is not super big for him either, so he's going to be a fairly decent welterweight. So Islam won't be a small guy. He'll be a decent welterweight if that fight materializes.
Mendez noted that even though Islam hasn't fought at welterweight yet, it could actually benefit him. With less weight to cut, Islam might feel stronger and recover faster. He explained that in Australia, fighters get only 24 hours to recover after weighing in, unlike the 36 hours they usually get elsewhere. While this shorter recovery window might not favor Jack, it could have some effect on Islam's performance, though Mendez is confident Islam's experience, especially against fighters like Volkanovski, prepares him well for that challenge.
I'm hoping, I haven't seen it, so I haven't seen him at welterweight, but I'm thinking, logically speaking, he has to cut less weight, and recovery time is a lot less too. So, but if it is in Australia, we'll need it, because in Australia, they only give you 24 hours to recover. Then it's not a 36 hours like everywhere else. So we'll only have 24-hour recovery. So if that's the case, it's fantastic, and I don't know if that's going to be an advantage because of that reason. But if it's anywhere else where it's the 36-hour plus, then it's a nice advantage for Islam to recover quicker. Not that it's a disadvantage or not an advantage for Jack. It's the same for Jack, but for us, it could make a difference, 24 hours versus 36 hours for recovery, because I know it was for Volk. It was a big difference.
Moreover, MMA analyst Luke Thomas applauded Jack Della Maddalena for his outstanding striking, highlighting how he managed to outperform Bilal Muhammad, even though Bilal put on a solid showing himself. However, Thomas also identified a few areas of concern in Della Maddalena's skill set, including defensive lapses and some questionable takedown attempts. He warned that these flaws could be costly against a fighter like Islam Makhachev, who is known for his precision, dominance, and ability to capitalize on even the smallest mistakes.
You knew the striking prowess of JDM, if he could just have enough time to get it going, would be enough. I think Muhammad somewhat overperformed relative to expectations, but in the end, JDM was better. But the defensive lapses, to me, I know we have to focus on like how good JDM is as a striker, but what could have cost him here was the incompleteness of his defense. And to me, he took a quantum leap forward today in showing how good that was. Now, again, trying to turn that defense into offense by trying to go for some of those ill-advised takedowns, especially in the fifth, and then you're getting kind of lateral dropped for it. You do that against Islam, and I think that's a huge mistake. Islam just doesn't make a lot of mistakes, right? He doesn't necessarily have, at times, always the flashiest offense. I mean, he does have very good offense. We're talking about the pound-for-pound #1 guy in the sport. But what really defines him is that he makes very, very good decisions.
Luke Thomas also shared his enthusiasm about the idea of Islam Makhachev moving up to the welterweight division. While he acknowledged the intrigue of a potential matchup with Ilia Topuria, his main focus was on what Makhachev might accomplish at 170 pounds. Thomas admitted there's no guarantee the move would be successful, but he emphasized the huge opportunity it presents for Islam to claim a second belt and solidify his legacy as a two-division champion.
I have to tell you, Islam up at 170 to me is exciting. I know what everyone's going to say. Oh my God, the best fight you could have made in MMA was Ilia versus Islam. I'm not denying it. I'm not in any way asking you to feel differently about what was the best fight that could be made. But here's what I am trying to tell you. Islam up at 170 could be something really special. It could fizzle too, but I'm trying to point out the positives. It could be really special. For him to become a double champ could be a very big deal.
Stephen Thompson weighed in on the potential hurdles Islam Makhachev might face if he moves up to welterweight, noting that despite Islam being naturally heavy, many welterweights cut down from well over 205 pounds, making size and strength key challenges. He mentioned that while Jack Della Maddalena may only have a slight height edge, the true test for Islam would be dealing with the overall physicality of the division. Thompson acknowledged Makhachev's world-class grappling, but pointed out that Jack has already held his own against top-tier wrestlers like Bilal Muhammad. Although he doesn't see the fight as an easy one for Islam, Thompson is intrigued by the matchup and expressed hope that the UFC will bring it to fruition.
I don't know, man. I mean, when you're going up to the welterweight division, those are some big boys. And I know Islam Makhachev walks around fairly heavy, but a lot of these 170s, they walk around real heavy. I'm talking about, over 205, 210 into 215. Some of the guys that I have faced would walk around at that weight. I think like the height, I think they might be the same height. I think JDM might be a little taller, but when it comes to those guys and their strength, Islam, I think, is going to have a tough time. Now, do I think he could get it done? Yes. I think he's that good of a grappler. But like I said, JDM has faced some of the best welterweight grapplers and wrestlers in the division. Bilal being one of them. I think it's going to be a tough night for him. I would like to see Islam fight Topuria. That's just me. I would love to see that fight happen. But if he comes up, we'll see what the UFC gets behind. And we all know you got to convince the UFC to make it happen. And you do that first by getting on Twitter, shouting it out, and get people talking about it. And that's what Islam did. So we'll see if that fight happens with JDM.
Henry Cejudo predicted that Islam Makhachev would get the better of Jack Della Maddalena and cement his status as a two-division UFC champion, calling the move a natural progression in Islam's legacy. On the other hand, Kamaru Usman threw his support behind Jack, praising his calm demeanor and expressing confidence in his ability to retain the welterweight title. Both Cejudo and Usman agreed that the fight is expected to happen in October in Abu Dhabi, temporarily shelving any potential clash between Islam and Ilia Topuria.
I think Islam Makhachev is going to beat him. I think he's going to become the 11th double champ in UFC history.
Islam tweeted, "Keep it shiny, keep it nice for me." JDM, I mean, it was kind of like the perfect comeback. He was just like, yeah, come get it.
Keep my belt clean. Okay, so the talking has begun, dude. That fight is set. That fight's going to take place in October, Abu Dhabi. I think we all know that. We're no longer going to get Ilia versus Islam Makhachev just now.
Ian Machado Gary expressed strong respect for Islam Makhachev, saying that if Islam moves up to welterweight to compete for the title, every fighter in the division should be paying close attention. He described Makhachev as a highly skilled and dangerous competitor who can pose serious problems for anyone he faces. Gary noted that without the stress of a difficult weight cut, Islam could be even more effective, with his already elite abilities becoming more dangerous. He added that Makhachev represents the modern evolution of mixed martial arts, a fighter who is technical, calm under pressure, and a real threat to anyone in the cage.
And if that man turns up and says, I want to be next, then I think everyone in the welterweight division goes, okay. He's an absolute disaster for everyone in the division if he comes up and doesn't have to cut weight. He'll still be big, he'll still be strong. He's the perfect example of the new evolution of fighters. Great everywhere.
Robert Whitaker shared his belief that Islam Makhachev might actually thrive at welterweight, pointing out how difficult his weight cut to 155 has been. He suggested that Makhachev's strength and dominance at lightweight could translate effectively to 170, potentially making the transition smoother than expected. Drawing a comparison to Ilia Toporia's situation, Whitaker referred to it as the $1 million question, noting that fans and fighters alike are eager to see how Makhachev will perform in a higher weight class.
Maybe it's I guess that's the $1 million question. That's the question everybody's asking, and that's kind of the question. It's the same situation as Topuria as well. How good is Topuria, but what's he going to look like up weight division? Same with Islam. By all reports, though, the weight cut was really hard for him, like really hard. He's super strong for that weight division, which, you know, must translate well to moving up, making it a little bit easy cut. Maybe he gets a little bigger. It's yeah, I'm very that's the $1 million question. Everybody's asking the same thing.
Robert Whitaker acknowledged that predicting how Islam Makhachev will perform at welterweight is challenging, as moving up a weight class always brings uncertainty. He highlighted that these unknowns make it tough to gauge any fighter's transition, given how much the physical and strategic aspects can shift. Despite the unpredictability, Whitaker expressed strong confidence in Makhachev's skills, stating that Islam can do everything Belal Muhammad does, but at a much higher level.
Definitely, but like I said, it is hard to try to get like an accurate gauge on what it's going to look like, not knowing how Islam is going to look when he moves up. Okay, it's always the question everybody asks when anybody is moving up a weight division or down a weight division. Okay, there's so many unknowns involved. But saying that, I think that Islam can do everything that Belal does, but way better. Okay, way better. So
Whitaker also shared his thoughts on Jack Della Madalena's recent performance, noting that while Jack clearly won the fight, it was still a competitive contest. He emphasized that a potential matchup between Jack and Islam wouldn't be easy for either fighter. However, Whitaker expressed confidence in Jack's potential, pointing to his hunger, determination, and what he referred to as an X factor. Just as Jack faced challenges against Belal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns, Whitaker believes he has the resilience to rise to the occasion once more.
Definitely, but like I said, it is hard to try to get like an accurate gauge on what it's going to look like, not knowing how Islam is going to look when he moves up. Okay, it's always the question everybody asks when anybody is moving up a weight division or down a weight division. Okay, there's so many unknowns involved. But saying that, I think that Islam can do everything that Belal does, but way better. Okay, way better. So
Ali Abdelaziz confirmed that Islam Makhachev will compete for the welterweight title this year, clarifying that it won't be for an interim belt. He acknowledged that Jack Della Maddalena is currently the champion, but if Jack is unable to fight, another contender will step in to face Islam for the title. Abdelaziz stated that this plan has been confirmed by the UFC, including Dana White and Hunter Campbell. He also mentioned that one of the conditions for Islam's move up was that if Jack were to get injured, the title would be vacated. While he hopes Jack stays healthy, Abdelaziz made it clear that the UFC is ready to proceed with a title fight regardless.
When will it happen, Islam and Jack?
Islam fighting for the title this year. The non-interim title, a title. Jack Mandalina is the champion, but if Jack is not available, it will be someone else fighting Islam for the title. That's what the UFC told me. That's what Dana told me. That's what Hunters, everybody said. You know, and that was one of the stipulations. If Islam go up, Jack get injured, and I hope he's healthy, and he seemed like he's healthy. this title will be vacated and Islam will fight for welterweight.
Gilbert Burns shared his support for Islam Makhachev's potential move up to welterweight, stating that 170 pounds seems like the right division for him given Makhachev's struggles to make 155. Burns acknowledged Makhachev's dominance as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter and suggested that a fight with Jack Della Maddalena would be much closer than many people expect. He highlighted Jack's training with top figures like Alexander Volkanovski and Craig Jones, which has provided him with valuable experience and preparation. Although Burns admitted he hasn't had the time to analyze the matchup in depth, he believes it would be an intensely competitive fight. So what are your thoughts on this? Share your thoughts in the comment section and make sure to subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video.